Here's a video that many of you have been waiting for. What is up, everybody? It's Kelsey with Diary of the Childfree, and today, by popular request, we'll be discussing the topic of child-free singles. It can feel like a lot of pressure sometimes to find a suitable partner, let alone that matches a very specific criteria such as being child-free, that also forever wants to remain child-free. So let's get into it, shall we? As we have seen online, plenty of child-free people exist, especially child-free singles. So we know that they are out there simply existing somewhere in the world. But how does one find child-free singles? It can feel rather tricky at times, but thankfully we live in modern times and have plenty of resources to help us in the process. Not to mention, we also have the rising recognition in the decision to choose a child-free lifestyle as well. Even without children, it's evident that many of us lead very busy lives. So it's only obvious that the first place to go seeking out other child-free singles will be online. On top of the wonderful world of social media connecting us all to one another, dating apps have really come into full effect for meeting people when you don't have the time to scout out people in person. We know the obvious ones such as Tinder, Bumble, and eHarmony, which can prove to be a headache as we often see joked about. But upon doing some research, there are some that exist out there that are specific to child-free individuals. The first one is called cfdating.com. And right away, the homepage states that children are for everyone. For those of us who prefer a relationship without kids, enter cfdating.com. The only authentic child-free online dating for the masses who are serious about finding love without kids. It also mentions that all profiles are human approved, making sure that everyone is properly screened to avoid scams within the site. After a person registers, their account gets put on a hold before it is accepted or declined, while staff checks their credibility before they gain full access. What I particularly liked about this website is that they clearly address what they define as being child-free, defining it as people who have made a clear choice not to have children now or in the future. You hear plenty of people discuss how they met someone who said they were child-free, but meant just in that present moment, or that they thought the other person would eventually change their mind down the road. I think this significantly, or well, hopefully, lays down the law on what people going onto the site are actually looking for. General memberships are free with a multitude of ways to interact with others on the website, in addition to being able to also reply to premium users. Whereas premium memberships offer a few more features such as being able to send unlimited amounts of messages, as well as being able to essentially go incognito and not be able to be seen by the other account when you're looking at their profile. I haven't been able to find the cost of the premium membership just yet, or any reviews regarding this website and how it performs, but if any of you have personally used it or heard about it, please let us all know in the comments below. In addition to cfdating.com, there's also another website that is similar but a little different called elitesingles.com. They claim that dating sites cater specifically to the child-free community are often way too niched, which I could see as being possible considering not many people know about these sites or have even considered trying them. They state that they use innovative matchmaking techniques so you know that you'll only be matched with people who want the same things as you. Their words, not mine. It doesn't sound quite entirely perfect though, because I could see they're running a risk of a person being matched with someone who's not actually child-free. But if it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, it's worth a try. Another option that surprised me was Reddit. I kept seeing this suggested while doing research for this topic, and there is actually a Reddit page called CF for CF, Childfree for Childfree, where child-free singles can post their introductory photos and summaries of themselves and see what becomes of it. Like most things on the internet, always be careful, especially if you go to meet someone that you met online in person. Always lead with your gut and make sure that you have safety plans, precautions, ready and prepared. Please always share your location if possible as well with a trusted individual, in addition to having a designated time to call them to inform them that you're safe. Don't worry though, if online is not your thing, I totally understand. Here are some of the possible places to find child-free individuals out in the real world, because while it can be time-consuming, they do exist out there. We've got urban cities, considering people without children are more likely to stay within city centers, dog parks, and hobby-based classes, since child-free individuals generally have more time to spend on those sort of activities. Don't solely go based off of that, however, because where you find a child-free person is going to greatly depend on their own personal day-to-day life in addition to what they're actually interested in. What comes nearly more important than how you find or meet a person, however, is gonna be the questions that you ask them. It may feel uncomfortable to bring up the topic of children early on, but you also don't want to waste your time on that person either if they aren't meeting eye to eye with you. I'd much rather deal with potential awkwardness than heartbreak down the road, having to come to this realization that a partner and I actually weren't on the same page after we already developed all these emotions towards one another. People will do a lot of things in the name of love, and I feel like a lot of those stories of people who changed their mind come from those who actually didn't want children, but they didn't want to lose that partner that they had grown attached to, so they simply complied to that partner's own desires instead of their own. Sometimes it's going to take a little extra pushing with some of those questions as well, because unfortunately, people do lie. If you are out looking for a potential serious partner, don't worry about asking these sort of detailed questions, because this is, after all, your life and your time that you're putting on the line. If you simply state that you don't want children, they agree, but you don't quite fully believe them or aren't quite sure, get less broad and more creative with your questions. You can state that you don't want children now, later, or ever. They aren't a part of your future, and this is something you don't ever plan on changing your mind on, not even for a partner. Depending how comfortable you are with it, from what I've read and have seen discussed online, you can usually find the truth with how people feel regarding being child-free by either mentioning that you're sterilized or questioning what that person would do if you were. Whether it's true or not, people will show their true colors and/or intentions when they then know that children are entirely out of the question, with zero possibility for them at all. They'll either let you know that that's something they are totally cool with or on the same page of, or make your life entirely much easier by not wasting your time with their dumb games. And if they call you crazy or anything else under the sun for bringing up said questions or topics, just leave. If they are too immature to handle serious topics, questions, let alone different perspectives, they aren't the one. So how did I meet my husband? Kevin and I met during a time where neither of us knew that being child-free was a thing or even had a name to actually match that feeling. 2014 to be exact. To be honest, it was complete luck, fate, meant to be, or whatever you want to call it. We met through Instagram after having somehow one mutual friend, all while living in completely separate countries. And we talked just as friends for several months before it became anything more. Once things began to feel more serious, we then started taking turns saving up so we could fly out to visit one another, often going 6 months in between trips without seeing one another. Both of us were young and had just left minor relationships, deciding to focus on ourselves, which clearly didn't last that long. Our meeting actually never came with the intention of finding fellow child-free partners. Something I stress to people more than ever based on what I know now is talking about those big topics as soon as your relationship starts to feel serious enough, because it's gonna spare you a lot of time, energy, and emotions. Kevin and I spoke a little bit more seriously regarding children, from what I recall, when we hit around the 6-month mark, and we quickly navigated through that decision. The way we went about discussing it at the time, considering we were already in a developed relationship, was dropping key points now and again and seeing where that conversation took us. This led to our ultimate decision of choosing a child-free lifestyle. Kevin very clearly knew that he didn't want children since his teen years, and he's always been very clear about his own wants and needs, no matter what they are, and that's one of the things that I love most about him. He is adamant about exploring most, if not all of his interests, and pursuing his goals 110%. And if I'm being honest, I saw a little bit of my own personality within him and vice versa, which I feel is what makes us work so well together. As for myself, I didn't completely know that I wanted to be child-free when I met him, because as I've mentioned in other things, I didn't grow up with much exposure to alternative lifestyles. My adolescence was filled with textbook standards of what life was thought and expected to be like. So although I heavily weighed on whether or not that would be something I actually wanted, I didn't believe I had a choice in the matter and would instead have to just give up part of myself because it was expected. People could say that it sounds silly not thinking that you have a choice, but when you grow up surrounded by traditional norms, people, and no outside influence or knowledge on other lifestyles, you simply follow the crowd. And this can be despite what you're actually feeling and questioning on the inside. So on top of coming to the ultimate understanding that leading a child-free lifestyle is going to be the best for my own wants and needs, I also in the process unpacked a lot of those expectations and norms placed upon me in my youth that I can now look back on with more knowledge compared to what I had then. Even to this day, I will still remember small things here and there and be able to go, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kevin helps me completely open up my world to a new perspective and understanding on what it means to actually live for your own wants and needs versus that of which is just expected of you. It's not a matter of him suddenly changing my mind because nothing was ever forced. I could have easily said good riddance, ended things, had I been very passionate about becoming a parent later on in life. It was the exploration of additionally realizing that I had never been living for me, but instead had been focused on planning and doing things based on how they would appear to the public eye and please others. And from that moment of realization, I started putting my own needs, wants, and desires on the forefront, and none of them involved a life that could include children. Kevin and I got married rather young at 19 and 23, so I am beyond grateful that we went through this realization together very early on in our lives. We both could have easily gone down very completely different paths had we not have met each other, and those paths would likely have been met with a lot of regret. I truly believe that Kevin and I were destined to meet because neither of us were actually looking for someone when we met, let alone specific to the lifestyles we now lead. But had we not asked the right questions or even had those serious discussions, I feel like we wouldn't have been able to fully understand ourselves in order to ultimately make the right choices for us. The initial meeting of someone is the time to truly get to know them. It won't obviously be every single little detail, but the conversations we carry with others while trying to initiate relationships are vital to being on the same page. And communication by far is going to be your most key component. Despite everything mentioned, as much as it can be great for some to have a child-free partner, don't let that stop or discourage you from embracing this period of your life. Being child-free and single is incredibly powerful. You have the ultimate freedom to live life entirely based on your own terms. But don't worry about rushing the process. I'm a firm believer that some of the best things find us when we aren't even looking for them and often catch us by surprise. I really hope this video helps some of you all with the overall discussion of things, as well as the resources that were shared. I would love to hear your thoughts, and please, if you have more to add to this topic, please feel free to do so in the comments below. That way, myself and others are able to learn more based on this topic. And if you'd like to see more, make sure to like and subscribe to stay posted. And as always, keep being authentically child-free.